right, welcome back. I didn't read your book. Today, we are talking to Anirudh Garg, The Greater Man, a new paradigm for modern masculinity. Anirudh, welcome. Accountability is men and women, but because we are men, just accountability in general seems to be a very rare thing. I'll give you an example just from today. I'm a dog trainer. And I was meeting up with a client that I had worked with over the winter, finished up our program. And I was like, okay, you guys are all set. Just keep up the good work and you should be good. Of course, you're going to go back to normal life, but some people let it lax a little bit more than others. And so I go back there, but not only has the first dog gotten, back to where it was, but they got another dog on top of that. And it had the ingredients to be a contentious situation. Basically, long story short, they finished the training package and they kind of just stopped keeping up with everything. And so the dog was like, oh, cool. That was just a thing we were doing. Now I can go back to do whatever I want. So while I'm trying to explain this to these two women who live together, it was very obvious that anytime that I had something to say that would nail down, well, here's why this is happening. Maybe we should try this instead. There would be a deflection. I think that it goes for men as well. Well, let me ask you, how closely do you think the lack of accountability is tied to the sense of entitlement?
Oftentimes they can work both ways. So you can have a situation where a person is incredibly responsible, or they feel like they've earned a lot, and they can use that power and feel entitled to greater things. You'll see this as a hallmark of abusive relationships. People will keep bringing up things that they've done for you, like I was there for you at this point. And that allows them to overstep their boundaries. I do think that there's some relationship between the lack of accountability and the sense of entitlement. But I think that oftentimes they might go, at least on the margins, in different directions. But in the example that you gave, I actually am very happy you brought that up because I don't know much about training a dog, but it's about creating a good system. So it's not just, oh, he's a good dog or he's a bad dog. It's about how do we take care of the dog, train it in such a way that he will be a good dog all the time. I view the same thing everywhere, that if we don't have systems, we end up being very self-destructive.
I like what you said there. So let's pick that apart. And very simply, I've broken the whole thing with the dog training down. First lesson is just kind of laying out the roadmap. I basically say that it's, well, first of all, that most dog trainers fail you by leaving you with a dog who knows tricks instead of an obedient dog. And the difference there is their respect of your authority. Yeah, if they know that they can get something for it, then that's one thing. But again, going back to understanding their roles and what they're supposed to be doing, whether or not they're going to get something out of it, comes down to that respect of authority. And, so first it's just teaching, okay, what does sit mean? What does this mean? What does that mean? Then the second phase is more about getting better at doing those things. But then the bulk of the work for at least the dog owner is to then take all of that and over a much longer period of time than that you'd be working with me to implement the system that, okay, this when I say this, that you got to do that. If you don't do this, then this happens. And you set up the structure and you set up the boundaries, you set up the roles. And a lot of my job is relaying the dog's perspective and how the dog is seeing the world and the owner's behavior to the owner so that they can understand what kind of structure they are establishing and what kinds of patterns that they're reinforcing. The same exact thing plays out in society with people, the general public being the dog, and depending on the circumstance, whether it's a politician or your parent or a religious leader or whatever it is, or the media being the person to set the boundaries. The problem with that specifically is even if you are a dog lover and you have a good idea of how to interact with your dog and what you want your dog to do, there's a pretty good chance that you can get it to work. But the difference between that and somebody who legitimately knows what they're talking about, has studied this, has been able to pick apart the factors of what's going on, and like you were talking about, come up with a workable and doable solution is much more than getting the dog to do any one different thing.
I agree with you emphatically. This is where the analogy, I think, between humans and dogs kind of breaks down, in that it's really difficult to reason with a dog. You have to at some level use force, whether you get to eat food or not. We don't want to create those systems with humans because we have the ability to articulate ourselves and express how we feel in a way that an animal cannot. But
yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want to get you off target. Sorry to interrupt you. But just to push back a little, the basic philosophy of my dog training is to establish those consequences, positive or negative. And then you do let the dog choose. And they see, oh, okay, it's not worth it to not listen to you because you're just going to stand in my face and sit until the end of time. And so they are making that choice. But I point taken, it's not a perfect analogy.
Well, yeah. So actually, you hit up a great reason for why. If a dog messes up, there's an immediate consequence. There are immediate results. Oftentimes, when we make decisions, there's so much of a lag. You could be making all the right decisions now, but you won't see results until 10 years later. Is that any
That is
reason not to do the right thing? No, we have to take different systems into account. Great example is education. Right now, women are outpacing men in getting college degrees in the United States because, at least for women, they've been conditioned to at least sit down in a classroom, do your homework, do your grades in that structured routine. And we say, young men, if you don't do good in school, it's fine. You can join the trades, you can become a truck driver, you can become a plumber, you can become an electrician. Those are jobs that we need. A lot of them are disappearing. Right now, we have a huge shortage on nursing jobs. Men aren't taking that, mostly because they've been conditioned that nursing is not a masculine behavior.
male nurse.
Unfortunately, nurse practitioners are expected to be making 6K right out of nursing school. Those are jobs that men are not going to have. And those behaviors that we create make it very difficult. And that's one of the self-destructive natures of men. There was a study from Harvard University in college. Men and women are equally likely to engage in gambling, but men are almost 9 times more likely to develop a gambling addiction and lose large amounts of money, and 3 times more likely to commit suicide because of gambling debt. They found that women managed hedge funds on average have at least 10 to 20% higher returns than male managed ones. And one of the reasons why is women are more risk averse. So while it's important we condition people to be willing to take risks, those long-term thinking, creating those conditions, a lot more complicated than just, I would say, training a dog. Not that training a dog is easy, but it
Definitely.
requires
No.
different things.
Right.